Several variables affect the interpretation of divergent situations and thus the parties' perception of whether or not they are in conflict. This factor can be divided into two broad categories. On the one hand, we find contextual or situational factors, and on the other, individual factors. Let's start with the contextual ones. The context in which we find ourselves affects the interpretation we make of the divergence. In particular, the perception of being in conflict or not with someone will depend on the type of interaction we usually have with that person. For example, some of our relationships are politer and more formal than others. A slip of the tongue in a formal relationship, at work for example, simply does not have the same effect as a slip of the tongue of the same magnitude between two friends. In the same way, while some couples have a habit of raising their voices at every turn, other couples have less tempestuous relationships, and a rising tone in these two types of couples will have very different consequences in terms of the perception of conflict. More generally, research shows that friendship between two individuals reduces conflicting interpretations of divergent situations, and that conflicts are also less present between individuals with similar rather than dissimilar personalities. In addition to these situation and relational factors, there are individual factors, that is to say, variables that are specific to individuals. For example, individuals with a high score on the agreeableness dimension of personality are less likely to be confronted with conflict than individuals with a low agreeable score. Conversely, individuals with a high negative emotional disposition will report more conflict episodes than individuals without this personality trait. This being said, perceptions of divergence are mostly affected by individuals' sensitivity to criticism and their tendency to take divergence and opposition as personal attacks rather than as a manifestation of a different opinion or interest. For sensitive individuals, any sign of opposition is associated with personal attack, an attack on their image, and therefore as a form of persecution. Conflict is no longer a circumscribed moment in the relationship between them and the other person, but the core defining characteristic of this relationship.